as an appeal to your members, okay, I submit that now is not the time for us to be on the fence with our conservatism.
Welcome to Gun Owners of America State of the Second podcast. I'm Kailey.
And I'm John, and today we're here with Scott Coburn from Patriot Mobile. Scott, how are you?
I'm fantastic, guys. It's a pleasure to be on here with you today. And anytime I get to talk about defending our Second Amendment rights, I get pretty excited. So just great to be on here to share a little bit about what Patriot Mobile's doing these days.
We're super excited that you're here. For those that might not know about Patriot Mobile, do you want to go in a little bit of the backstory, how you guys got started and where you're at today?
Absolutely. So Patriot Mobile, we've been at this for about 10 years now. About a little over 10 years ago, our founder and CEO, Glenn Story, saw an opportunity to create a cell phone service provider that gave back to Christian conservative causes, right? So we saw a competitor on the other side that was doing the same thing for the left, that was doing things to fight against our freedoms. And he says, why don't we have anything on our side? And so that was the genesis of Patriot Mobile about 10 years ago. And since then, we've just been trying to get the word out that, hey, we are different in so many ways than your current cell phone service provider. I say it all the time. Our mission has nothing at all to do with cell phones and everything to do with defending freedom. So that's why our customers come to us, because they know we're on the front lines fighting for our rights and freedoms, as opposed to some of the other companies out there that may not be so in tune with our freedom fighting activities, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and it's more than just a company that is, kind of the opposite of you all. It's almost like the default for a lot of the big major brands out there are to cut against our Second Amendment rights and to push causes that are, I hate to say anti-American, but at some point you have to, say what it is. How have you guys seen that 10-year growth explode from people who want to vote with their dollar?
Yeah, great question, Kailey. And actually, we were actually on the front lines of this whole red wave. We call it the red economy, parallel economy, some people call it, before woke was even a thing. So we've been in a good position to see over the last 10 years kind of that division, if you will, within our economies. And what we've seen is that Americans are asking every day, what more can I do to support the freedoms and the values and beliefs that I believe in, that my family believes in? And having a cell phone service provider like Patriot Mobile is one way that everybody can say, hey, I'm doing everything I can to defend the things that I believe in. And, you mentioned the other side. And, I could say this with all honesty, there's not a cell phone service provider in this country that does more to defend our Second Amendment right to bear arms than Patriot Mobile. There's just not. And the problem is, on the flip side of the equation, when you consider just for a minute how much money comes from big tech and corporate America to fund organizations that are fighting against our freedoms, trying to take away our guns, it's insane. So this is really one way that everybody can get involved, and just by knowing that there's an alternative out there called Patriot Mobile, and that it works as good or better than the cell phone service provider that I have today, is everything, right? So just on that alone, I would like to think that anyone that's listening to this interview right now would at least consider switching their cell phone service to Patriot Mobile.
Yeah, and what do you guys do for the Second Amendment, for Second Amendment rights? If you don't mind diving into that a little bit more.
Sure. So what we do, and this is how we carry out our mission. We carve out a portion of every dollar we earn. So every customer bill that's paid every month, we carve out a portion of that bill, and we donate it back to organizations that are fighting for our rights. And we typically like to narrow the focus of our giving to four key areas. We call these the four pillars of our company. And that's First Amendment, Second Amendment, sanctity of life, and then we support our military and first responders. So every month we will make donations back to organizations like Gun Owners of America, like, there's a lot of people out there in the military, veteran, and first responder space that we support, folds of honor. There's just, we really want to focus our giving to the people that are being the best stewards with the money, that are having the most impact. One of the reasons we like GOA is because of your effectiveness in the lobby space. That you could argue that there's not a more effective organization right now that are lobbying for our Second Amendment rights than GOA. So we look to partner with organizations that are having the most impact using the dollars that we provide.
Thank you for that. And that's something that, we really pride ourselves on, as being that grassroots coalition. And, we've got quite a bit of history being around since 1976, protecting that Second Amendment. So it's always nice when others come alongside and say, hey, we want to move the ball forward, because we're seeing attacks like never before. I want to kind of briefly touch on some stuff that has been happening with, the cell phones that have kind of made major waves in the Second Amendment space, which is carriers saying we're no longer going to allow gun manufacturers and gun stores and ranges to be able to communicate with their customers, even if those customers have opted in to receiving those data rates. As a company that obviously supports the Second Amendment, but also supports the First Amendment, how does that sit with you all?
Yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up there, Kailey, about some of the censorship that goes on with big tech. And we absolutely believe that all of our constitutional rights are worth fighting for, including freedom of speech. And what we believe in is providing a platform, a communications platform for our customers, both our business customers and our consumer customers, to communicate freely without any feeling that their privacy is being invaded, or that there's censorship issues that they need to be concerned about. And I actually have had many conversations with gun manufacturers over the last couple of years here. And interestingly enough, the light bulb moment for them comes on when I position it kind of like this. Like, every time you or any of your employees are using your cell phones to do anything, talk, text, send a picture of you and your family at the range, you're actually either supporting the guys that are trying to take away your guns, or you're supporting the guys that are trying to defend your gun rights. So the choice is really yours. And now that they understand that there's an alternative, and that it actually works, Patriot Mobile, we're built on the same towers as all of the big three carriers in this country. So when you come to Patriot Mobile, you're going to get the same or better coverage than you have today. There's really no reason not to switch, to be honest with you.
What I like is, we live in a society that is built and predicated on personal responsibility. We at GOA have a definition of what a gun rights activist is, and it's someone who takes personal responsibility not only in the use of their firearms, but in the defense of their right to own them. And anytime we as individuals have the ability to take personal responsibility and educate ourselves on where our dollar is going, we become a more engaged citizenry, and that makes us a leaner, meaner fighting machine. This isn't, and I can tell for some people, they get into an interview like this and their walls immediately come up, because we as humans tend to be creatures of habit. And when you've spent the better part of 5, 10, 25 years with the same phone carrier, and you have a relationship or a perceived relationship with them, and all of a sudden you are realizing that they're not supporting the kind of pro-constitutional values that you have, it's kind of like, well, what's next? Am I even going to be able to clothe my children? Is kind of where a lot of people find themselves at. But the next right step to make is the next right step. And you don't have to overhaul everything to constantly be in a state of getting better. and understanding more and choosing to vote with your dollar. We've seen through COVID more people vote with their feet than I think any of us ever expected to. I mean, my parents live in Florida, and I think that they're at capacity in the state because of how many people chose to vote by moving. And I think you're now starting to see that happen more and more with people voting with their dollar.
Oh, 100%. And the interesting point there is, you hear this, this echo chamber we live in, you hear this all the time, that elections have consequences. Well, I submit to you that the way we spend our money and who we choose to support with our dollars also has consequences. And that's very empowering. You mentioned that when you started your last statement. It's empowering to know that you're making an impact with every dollar you spend. And when I'm out talking amongst circles, my sphere of influence, my friends, my family, my neighbors, I try to impress upon them that every little bit does matter, right? I mean, let's be honest, we don't have a George Soros on our side, funding these causes. We've got to band together, and there is power in numbers. And I honestly believe that the majority of Americans today wholeheartedly support the freedoms that you and I are out there fighting for every day. And when they go buy a cup of coffee, or they go to buy their groceries, or who they choose to bank with, those are decisions that they're making that do have an impact on the direction of this country. And yes, even the cell phone service provider that you choose to use also has an impact. Believe it or not, the cell phone bill for the average family in this country is typically a top 5 expense when you look at the monthly expenses, right? It's significant. So knowing that a significant amount of money that you're going to pay is going to support a company that aligns with your own values and beliefs is so important.
We're seeing this, like Kailey said, this mass exodus, this movement. Do you see more companies like Patriot Mobile existing where the Christian conservative mindset is very based in those companies? And do you see you guys expanding not just from mobile service, but to other services as well to help vote with your dollar?
John, we've actually tried to model our business in a way that it can become very clear to other businesses that want to try to do the same thing, right? I mean, we have been blessed beyond measure simply by forming a company and a group of employees that, to a man, believe in our mission and believe in what we're doing and believe that God is at the helm of this ship and has taken us in the direction that we want to go. And being able to come to work every day and freely express, and your values and beliefs and not feel that there's going to be repercussion is so empowering. So we're trying to be a model. And what we've seen is a lot of companies have come to us and said, how do y'all do this? How can we do this? How can we kind of mimic what you're doing? And it's really quite easy, actually. You just follow your heart, follow your values and beliefs, and draw a line in the sand. You say, look, we're just not going to support vendors, companies, customers, or whoever that don't align with our values. We're in this to make a difference for our country, for our kids, for the future of this country. And that's where our passion lies. There's not a person in our building right now at our headquarters that's here just to draw a paycheck. We're all activists ourselves. We're boots on the ground. When you see us out there at these events, we're out there because first and foremost, these are things that we believe in. When we go to SHOT Show, we're out there to support this army of Second Amendment warriors out there, just like us, doing what you guys have been doing. That's what we believe in. And we believe that there's no limit to the types of businesses, or really, if you think about every dollar you spend, there should be an alternative on the conservative Christian side, like a Patriot Mobile. And I think we're getting there pretty quickly. I think you're going to see more and more of that. Obviously, there's going to be some that are a little bit harder to replace. You don't spin up an Amazon right away. You don't spin up a Target right away, but there are alternatives coming in every space that we can think of and how we spend our money. And that's really how we're all going to be able to get on board and make this thing carry through to whatever the next phase of it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I did have an interesting question for you. historically, the media and the companies who run the cell towers are very liberal. What was the ability for you guys to get on those networks and to build your own network while dealing with the liberal overreach?
Great question. And in fact, that's typically the number one objection we get for people that want to switch to us is they say, hey, it has to work, right? And they know it costs billions of dollars to build a cell phone network that spans all 50 states like ours nationwide. Here's what makes us different. Congress passed a law many years ago that allowed other companies to be able to leverage the cell phone networks of all the main carriers in this country. We have agreements with all three of the main cell phone carrier networks in this country. We buy data wholesale off their towers, and then we repackage it as Patriot Mobile. We have our own marketing, our own billing systems. We have our own 100% US-based customer support. But we leverage those guys for the infrastructure and the data, which is so costly and expensive to build out. We just wouldn't have the means to build out our own cell phone network. So we leverage what the law allows us to leverage, and we resell it as Patriot Mobile and provide an alternative. And people always say, I get asked the question, they're like, hey, well, if you're built on their towers, aren't you really supporting them? And I say, well, they provide a service that's very valuable to every American in this country, and they should get paid for that service. It's the profits that come from paying those cell phone bills and how those profits are utilized to support companies is where we can make a difference between the three main carriers and an MVNO or a carrier like Patriot Mobile. It's where we choose to allocate the profits and who we choose to support.
So, Patriot Mobile is kind of governed by the rules of the FCC, right?
Yes.
And so, is there any is there any challenges that the bureaucracy that seem to be getting more and more radicalized or targeted towards constitutionally minded companies and organizations? Are you guys experiencing some level of I don't want to say mistreatment, but where depending upon the administration depends on how fast your calls get answered, like those kind of roadblocks and challenges?
Yeah, and you know what? We have not experienced those types of issues from an infrastructure basis or prioritization of calls or any of that. We haven't. We can confidently provide service to our customers that is on par or better with the service that they get today. Now, obviously, the activism we do opens us up for as targets for other attacks, but they're not attacks of typically of a technological nature.
Mhm.
It's attacks to being calling us like Christian nationalists, right? Okay, well, what does that even mean, right?
Yeah.
we get called a lot of things, but you know what? If we weren't being targeted, it means we're probably not being as effective as we could. So the more we get targeted and attacked, it's just affirming that we're doing what we're called to do, and that is to go out and say, hey, this is what we believe in. This is who we are, unashamedly Christian, pro-freedom, pro-America, all of those things that tend to get you attacked these days, sadly, but it's who we are, and we're not going to stop doing that.
We talked about your network, how strong it is. How easy is it for somebody to go, okay, well, I've heard how strong your network is. I've heard, good things. How do I switch? How do I get over? How easy is that?
Another great question, John, because the second biggest objection we get to switching to Patriot Mobile is they're like, hey, last time I switched my cell phone service provider, I walked into a retail store, walked out 3 hours later and wanted to slam my head in the car door. It was so painful, right? No more. Like we try to make it as easy as possible. We do everything online and over the phone. We have no retail stores, and that's by design. We can keep our costs down, we can keep our overhead down, and we can still provide the same or better level of support than you would get at a retail store. And we use technology to make switching easier. There's a new concept out there, or somewhat new, called eSIM. And eSIM simply means that all of these newer eSIM enabled phones, you no longer have to have a physical SIM card switched out in your phone. When you sign up for Patriot Mobile, I can shoot you an email with a QR code in it. You take out your phone, use your camera, zap that QR code. It loads the SIM into your phone, and you're active. So using things like eSIM and other technologies to make things easy for our customers to switch is what we pride ourselves on. Now, you can go online to patriotmobile.com and you can go to the shopping cart and sign up for service there. Or if you want a higher touch experience, you can call 972 Patriot and have one of our US based salespeople walk you through all of our different plans, how to sign up, how to switch over. You can keep your number. We can port your number over from your old carrier. You can keep your phone, or you can upgrade to a new phone. We sell all of the latest, greatest Apple and Android devices. So yeah, we have a lot of different things we can offer. And you mentioned earlier, what other products and services, John? I think you mentioned what other services and products are we going to try to offer? Well, just recently, we've launched what I couldn't be more excited about. It's called Patriot Mobile One, and this is on a single smartphone. I can now have 2 active lines on 2 different networks. Okay. I don't know if you guys remember, just recently, like a week or 2 ago, one of the main networks in this country went down and millions were without use of their cell phone. With Patriot Mobile One, if you were in that same situation, your secondary line would kick in and you wouldn't be without use of your cell phone or data. So I don't know about you guys, but I don't want my wife and my 18-year-old son who's about to go off to college, I don't want to have to worry about them being out there and find themselves in a situation where they don't have use of their cell phone or their GPS on their, if they're trying to get somewhere at night, right? So this is just peace of mind that we can offer that truly is a better product than what you can get with any of the main carriers out there today that have a single network.
So I want to kind of go into the viewpoint of the consumer, right? So pardon me for going to sound a little bit like devil's advocate, because I think a lot of people, listen to an interview like this and maybe they're like, wow, this guy's a really good salesman. And maybe they're sitting there going, actually, I think that, there's a lot of truth to this. But it seems to be for any time that there's a big change, there's always that hurdle, that barrier to entry. And so most people, I would dare say, have some sort of payment plan on their phone. Does that lock them out of becoming a Patriot Mobile subscriber?
Absolutely not, Kailey. In fact, we have a contract buyout program, which will allow you, if you owe money on your existing device, in order to have that phone unlocked with your current carrier, you're going to need to pay off that phone. Well, we offer up to $500 per line in the form of a statement credit when you come over to Patriot Mobile. So if you owe $500 or less on your device, or even if you owe a little bit more and you pay it off, we'll pay up to $500 per device. So if you have a family of 4 and you own 4 devices, you can get up to $2,000 in statement credit when you join Patriot Mobile. So you're not going to have a cell phone bill for a while when you switch to Patriot Mobile on the CBO.
And then a lot of parents that feel like their kiddos need to have a phone, but they don't want to give them a smartphone. I know that some carriers allow for devices like Bark phones and others. Some don't. What kind of parental controls, what kind of offerings do you guys have for those more conscious-minded parents?
Yeah, so we do offer a selection of very basic minimalist phones. And if you go to our website at patriotmobile.com and you click on shop and then phones, you can see the different devices we offer. Or even better, there's a whole plethora of phones out there that you can go to Best Buy, go wherever, buy your phone unlocked. And most times we can activate that device on any of our networks at Patriot Mobile. The easiest way to check if you have a particular device in mind that you want to bring over is just call us at 972 Patriot. Tell us what kind of device you have, and we'll be able to confirm that it can be switched. And we'll also help walk you through the process to get that unlocked and then switched over to Patriot Mobile.
Now, Scott, you mentioned something that intrigued me. I, like all Americans, have called my cell phone provider because I've had an issue. And 95% of the time, it's some call center overseas that then just gets escalated and escalated. And hours later, I finally get no resolve. You mentioned that you guys are a USA-based call center. Is that something that if I call, am I going to speak to a USA-based representative no matter the time and the date?
That is also one of our biggest differentiators, John, is our 100% US-based customer support. When you call Patriot Mobile support, you're going to be talking to somebody in English here in Grapevine, Texas, or we have a call center out in East Texas in Tyler. And then we have another call center to expand our coverage out on the West Coast in Lancaster, California. So you're going to talk to somebody in English again, but also you're going to be talking to somebody that believes in what you believe in. They'll be happy to talk about Second Amendment rights. They'll even pray for you if you have a prayer need. I mean, it's truly unique, our customer support, that you would not find in a typical company, especially large company in this country today. So that is a huge difference maker for our customers. In fact, we've had customers that have come over to Patriot Mobile simply because they love the fact we hire only US-based customer support. And they, just for what you said, John, they had a terrible experience with some other company on getting service for their device. And they decided, you know what, I've had enough. I want to move to a company that I know is going to take care of me. And, oh, by the way, it aligns with my values and beliefs. That's a win-win.
Now, we talked a little bit earlier about products. You talked about the new products that you have coming. As a person who is on the internet a lot, is that something that you guys are going to look into for the future, kind of like the other carriers have started to do?
Absolutely. In fact, we just launched another product a few months ago called Patriot Mobile Connect. And this is essentially internet on the go. It's carrier agnostic. So it can ping all three of the networks in this country. So for a guy that's maybe traveling around a little bit and wants to know that he always has data, or maybe he's got an RV, we got a little router we can put in your RV. You can plug all your smart devices into that router. And as you move around the country, you're going to know that you're going to get the strongest, it's constantly pinging for the strongest cell phone signal. That's a nice product for people that want, a failover solution if their home internet goes down. That's a good product for that too. We're also going to be looking at potentially rolling out other connectivity solutions for the home, like home Wi-Fi, fiber, those kind of things. We're looking for the right partners to come on board and be able to know that we're values aligned and that they believe in the things we believe in first and foremost, and that they provide the same level of service and products that we expect and that our customers expect.
Now, you guys use all the major carrier towers. I have to ask this, as somebody who has driven from Phoenix to Vegas multiple times for work, that drive, and even in Texas, that drive across Texas can be spotty at times. So do you guys, by having all these different towers to ping off of, does that mean that my service is going to be better throughout those stretches?
Absolutely. And in fact, on my phone right now, I've got the T-Mobile and the AT&T network active on this device right now. So I have a primary line and a secondary line. I was in Omaha 2 weeks ago at a conference, and for whatever reason, the building I was in, the AT&T network I was not getting any bars, no signal. Easy. I just flipped over to my T-Mobile line, and I had data and I had coverage. So that's the kind of things that we can do that you can't do with a single carrier or a single network carrier. They can spin up multiple lines on the same phone, but they're going to be on the same network. I can put you on multiple or all three of the main networks in this country on a single device with a single bill. So you don't have to worry about interesting story. I had Kash Patel in our office a few months ago, And he sits down in our conference room. He pulls out 3 cell phones. I said, Cash, what are you doing? He goes, I have to have coverage. I've got a phone on all 3 networks. I just carry 3 phones with me. I said, give me about 20 minutes. I'll have you spun up. I spun him up all 3 networks on a single phone, and he was blown away. He was like, wow, this is unbelievable. So that's something we can offer that the other cell phone carriers can't. So we truly have a better product.
That's awesome. And what I keep going back to is you can have your cake and eat it too. And there are very few situations that conservatives and pro-gun people find themselves in that position. Usually, you're trying to make something work, and well, okay, this is work. You can literally fight for your rights and have coverage, and you're not really sacrificing anything, and except for maybe a price tag.
Some really long. You're sacrificing some really long customer service calls, according to John.
And so that's so great. And then the other thing is, a lot of people find that they save money. And let's be honest, we're in Biden's economy right now, and a lot of families are having to decide, can we support the causes that we care about and provide for the basic needs of our family? And so by having some of that kind of wrapped in all together, it does help us as individuals take that personal responsibility that we want to take. I think that most people that are sitting in America right now, the silent majority wants to take action. They're just not sure when, where, and how. And just like we're able to fight against the echo chambers and fight in the courts and fight in the legislatures on policy points, you guys are able to support us in that fight, but also fight in a big tech and censorship fight that a lot of people have been completely unaware of it's happening. We think of people like T-Mobile or Verizon or other carriers as, well, they're just the big guys. They're a necessary evil. But what you guys are allowing people to do is allow them to operate by using their towers, but take back the vast majority of that control. And that's where we, the people, have always succeeded, is when we have the power to actually make that impact and make that change.
That's right. And that's an excellent point. And going back to something you just said about the Biden economy, one of the things we pride ourselves on is the consultative approach that we take in our sales. If you go to any of the big 3 carriers, you're more than likely you're going to get sold some kind of max plan that has a ton of data that maybe you don't use. We'll look at, when you call into Patriot Mobile, we'll look at your data usage on your current statement or your invoice or your bill and say, hey, let me put you in the right plan. You don't want to be buying more data than you use. If you hook up to your Wi-Fi at home in your office most of the time, like me, I don't use more than a couple of gigs of data a month. So I can get away with a $35 a month, 3 gig plan, whereas AT&T or some of the other carriers might try to sell you a plan that might cost you $80, $90, $100 a month when you just don't need it. So we're going to try to put you in the right plan according to how much data you use, and look at your family members and put them in the right plan for how much data they use. And more often than not, we can save you a little bit of money over sometimes a lot of money over what you're paying today.
Well, you brought up money, and that's always a hot topic. So, all these major carriers get you in on these introductory rates, and then a year later they spike up. If I switch over to Patriot Mobile, is that something I'm going to have to worry about?
No. And in fact, John, we have only had to raise prices one time in our 10 plus year history. And that was just recently. And it was simply because of what we were just talking about, the Biden inflation. We really pride ourselves on maintaining the best and brightest employees, the ones that are on board with the mission, but also work hard for the mission. And we want to be able to pay our employees. So we did have to do a very small price increase. And again, that was the only one we've ever had in our 10 plus years in business. And we do pride ourselves on that. So the other thing I'll say is, you guys, I think one of you mentioned it earlier about the quote unquote free phone that you're getting that all the other carriers are promoting. Well, guys, we know, freedom's not free and neither are cell phones, right? You're going to pay for that phone. They may say it's free, but all of a sudden your monthly bill's $30 a month more and you're going, what happened? Right. We don't believe in any hidden fees or trying to bait and switch. When we tell you what you're going to pay per month on your initial call, that's what you're going to pay per month. And we just pride ourselves on the honesty and integrity approach that we use, and just being transparent about our pricing.
That's awesome. Well, I know that we're kind of coming into the end of our time. So I want to make sure that it is very clear for everyone that is listening to this podcast. This was a lot of information, and we don't usually have as much of a breakdown of someone's business model as we have here. But it's important for a couple of reasons. One, we want to be fully transparent. GOA is partnering with Patriot Mobile. We are coming alongside each other. They are supporting us in the fight. They are helping us with raising money for lawsuits, and all of that's coming from the monthly bills of people who truly want to vote with their second dollar. And so we spend a lot of time on this because we want to be completely transparent with you, our members, on why we're locking step with a company that, yes, truly believes in the Second Amendment, supports the Second Amendment, but also has 3 other pillars that they go out and they fight for as well. And then the second thing is this. It is so important that we as individuals recognize the challenges of people who are in adjacent industries to the Second Amendment. Because just like what we're seeing with some carriers saying, hey, we don't want you sending text messages to people who have subscribed to you that want, firearms content. The only way that we're going to be able to push back against those type of censorships is by showing a viable option of people who are willing to fight and stand up for those rights. And so I want it to be very clear to our members that, we are working together. This is a formal partnership. You'll be able to check out our website, which will link to them. You'll be able to go directly to Patriot Mobile and see information about GOA. And I want to be very clear about where we're coming from on this fight, because it is going to take everyone together in order for us to protect, defend, and ultimately restore the Second Amendment.
That's a great wrap too, Kailey. And I will say this. I mean, as an appeal to your members, okay, I submit that now is not the time for us to be on the fence with our conservatism, right? I mean, it's not the time to pick and choose which parts of this red economy that we want to participate in. It's a time to be all in if we want to win. We know where this train is headed if we don't get it right. So my question to anyone that will listen to me is, why leave anything to chance? Leave it all on the field. This is one way you can draw a line in the sand and say, hey, I'm going to switch to Patriot Mobile, and I'm going to know that every time I use my cell phone, I'm supporting a company that believes in what I believe in and not the other way around. It's so empowering. And again, you mentioned the ease of which we can get you switched. Go to patriotmobile.com/GOA and make sure you tell them you heard about us at GOA. Use the code GOA. We're going to give you a free month of service for all the lines on your account. We want you to be 100% sure and confident in our service. So we're giving you the first 30 days for free. Go to patriotmobile.com/GOA or call 972-PATRIOT. Use the code GOA, and we're going to give you that free month of service. And all GOA members get 15% off of your monthly bill forever. So that's another reason to switch.
It's a night, especially it's very nice, especially in this economy. I mean, anytime that you're able to give yourself a little reprieve, a little breathing room. I mean, depending upon how many lines and stuff, I mean, that could be a whole nice little ammo budget. You know, throw it towards towards your range fees for the month. So that's awesome. We're super excited about this partnership. You guys will be at our convention goals coming up this August. So, you know, if you're sitting here and you're on the fence and you don't want to call in, you want to, you know, meet people face to face and really kind of get to see all of the offerings, you guys will be at our convention as well. And so, you know, mark that as a spot that you can't miss at Goals.
We couldn't be more excited about that event, and we will have people on the ground ready to activate you at the show. If you choose to say, hey, I'm ready to do this, let's go. I'll have guys there on the ground ready to activate you right there at the show.
Awesome.
Scott, we want to thank you again for joining us today. Guys, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the little bell for notification on YouTube. If you're listening to this on a podcasting host, leave a 5-star review. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.